As down the glen one Easter morn to a city fair rode I, there armored lines of marching men in squadrons passed me by. No pipe did hum, no battle drum did sound its loud tattoo, but the Angelus bell o'er the Liffey's swell rang out in the foggy dew. Minehead, day 88, 15.00. Hinckley sealed her suit. She had managed to recharge and rearm most of it. Sergeant Ellison had solemnly brought various supplies from the medical bay. No one asked where they came from. They already knew. "Do me a favor and change the damn music. We've been hearing that all day. Either they're coming or not. I have a better one." Her men were locking themselves into level 6. Many had been fighting all day, and she had been trying to cycle them back into the canteen for food and warmth. The Sarge had produced unidentified pills and patches for them, allowing them a boost. "I'll lose my license for this, but the boys need it, and I don't think we need worry about the long-term effects right now." Then he returned to his grim labor. She turned to the engineering sergeant. "How much longer?" "You understand, none of us has a clue what will happen. I mean, this is something we were taught in school. Armies don't walk around with this stuff." Hinckley nodded. "I remember, it will burn, right?" Mabry grimaced. "Burn? There are tons here. It could take us all out, too. One hell of a bang is all I can tell you." The captain thought about pulling the men further back. But back where? The battlefield was only getting smaller, and that suited the enemy more than her. She turned to comms. "Tell everyone to get to cover. Fuck knows what's about to happen." The men put their suits to maximum and got as close to the walls as possible. Waiting. The barrels burst. The water mains blew. Suddenly, the Sijec on level 4 were soaking wet. Then the water hit the tons of potassium scattered by the barrels. The word exothermic sums up what happened. Liquid fire filled level 4, pouring down into level 5. Then the hydrogen caught fire. The explosion ripped through the ceiling, hurling huge blocks of stone through the air. All the Sijec troops were burned or flung by an explosion that ripped right to the surface, destroying all the enemies and repairs on the way. Level 5 just burned. Right proudly high over Dublin town, they hung out that flag of war. 'Twas better to die 'neath an Irish sky than at Suvla or Sudel Bar. And from the plains of Royal Meath, strong men came hurrying through, while Britannia's sons with their long-range guns sailed in from the foggy dew. When the walls stopped ringing, she called her men. "Well, fuck me! That was a surprise. Get your men rotated down here. I don't think we'll be busy for a while. If the fires die out, I need you to retake level 5. See if any of their heavy plasma weapons survived." "Aye, Captain. You're not planning on doing that again, are you? Only the boys are all slightly deaf now." "What? Can't hear you. I'm slightly deaf at the moment." Sijec ground command. The staff were stunned. No one had the faintest idea of what had just happened. The battlemaster had been directing operations from the first level, until he and all the attacking packs had been torn asunder by the explosion. The battle fleet was out in the system, hunting down the humans. "Do we continue the attack? What are they using against us? Our intelligence showed that the human Marines don't carry heavy weapons. It's counter to their doctrine." "I am beginning to think that we know more about their doctrine than they do. Recall the packs, we must seek new leadership. The humans may have died in the explosion, too. In any case, post guards on the mine, the survivors aren't going anywhere anyway. Don't post them to close, just in case." Oh, the night fell black, and the rifle's crack made perfidious Albion reel mid the leaded rail. 7 tongues of flame did shine o'er the lines of steel. By each shining blade a prayer was said, that to Ireland her sons be true, when the morning broke. Still the war flag shook out its fold on the foggy dew. Sijec battle fleet, attacking human fleet. The battle fleet took news of the battlemaster's demise remarkably well, since they had their own orders anyway. The general attitude was, well, if you fight on the dirt, don't expect much honor. However, they did send back a few ships to screen the planet. From the description of the explosion, it may have been an orbital attack, but that was seen as unlikely as far as the battle fleet was concerned. Still, it sidelined some unpopular captains that would now have to sit on the sidelines and watch the human ships burn. The communications officer looked up. "Sire, the transmission from the humans has changed. We believe it to still be human battle music." "The scum celebrate the death of our men. Commence the attack. They will change their tune shortly. Admiral's flagship Earth Response Fleet approaching Sijec Battle Fleet. Admiral Rourke looked at the report. So explain to me what happened. You report that a massive explosion destroyed the mine. The Sijec are withdrawing following massive losses, and you suspect that our Marines somehow carried a nuke around for weeks without first being issued one and second, not using it until now. Would you like to join your previous colleagues cleaning the toilets? His unlikely Australian staff officer squirmed. Sir, I meant that the scale was nuclear, not the weapon. Intel says they destroyed the Sijec leadership and an unknown but substantial number of ground forces died. They have also altered the transmission. I have brought you the new one. Perhaps you can identify it for us. The Admiral stiffened. He recalled the last one. He nodded. Play it. It was England bade our wild geese go that small nations might be free. Their lonely graves are by Suvla's waves on the fringe of the grey North Sea. But had they died by Pierce's side or fought with Cathal Brua, their graves we'd keep where the Fenians sleep, neath the shroud of the foggy dew. This time he smiled. The fuckers are still alive and fighting, bloody hell. That, Officer, I'm from Australia, is a proper battle song. I have no idea what they are doing, but they are still alive. Tell the Marines that there is still hope. Then assemble the captains. We will engage the enemy now. The staff officer went back to the bridge, muttering to himself, I keep telling him, Austria, not Australia. One mistake on one form. Fuck. Minehead, Day 88, 17.00. Most of the men had been fed and treated. The ones lost on Level 5 had been recovered, and the men were rebuilding the defenses. There was no one trying to kill them at the moment, and they enjoyed the quiet. None of them had expected any kind of respite, and they had come to believe that the captain was born with the luck of the Irish. No one was quite sure what that was, except that if it killed their enemies and meant they had time to eat, today everyone was Irish. Hinckley called her sergeants to Vault 1. People, I didn't expect us to still be here. I believe we have defeated the ground troops for now, because guess who arrives next, now that I blew a nice clean hole all the way down? Sergeant Eliam was the first to respond. Fuck. The battle fleet can hit us now. Let's hope they're busy. Hinckley nodded. They may not have the idea yet, but I'm guessing they don't want to climb down to meet us again. I'd be looking for a couple of nukes from space if I were them. To put it as sweetly as possible, we need to get out. Now. The sergeants agreed after much muttering. So we climb? Aren't there any better ways to the surface? Not anymore. We have to go out through the breach. It's going to suck. I need our specials up on top before we evacuate. That is going to be bloody. I'm hoping you recovered some heavy plasma weapons? She looked at her armorer, who simply said, No, melted beyond use, sorry. We move light and fast. I'm taking the lead on this. Get your squads together, best ones on the top and bottom, wounded last. Anyone with me needs the full stealth kit, steal it, borrow it, whatever. We leave in an hour. Sergeant Elysium goes with the wounded and is appointed second in command. Clear? Unhappy approval filled the room. EDF engaging the fleets engaged. The EDF fleets split into the small mobile units they preferred, while the Sijec formed large packs that looked to encircle and isolate the humans, always looking for the weak point. The capital ships were utterly different in concept and design. The humans had long since abandoned the dreadnought as a practical ship design, for the same reason that you don't salute officers in the field, unless you really didn't like them. Human ships shared a philosophy of thick-skinned, very mobile, and armed well, but not to the point of stupid. The Sijec were a pack mentality. Their capital ships were large, slow, and carried weapons that might be useful if the target was a large planet. However, they were surrounded by many, many smaller and sharper ships. The Sijec called them Claw Class. But the bravest fell, and the requiem bell rang mournfully and clear for those who died that Eastertide in the springing of the year. And the world did gaze in deep amaze at those fearless men and true who bore the fight that freedom's light might shine through the foggy dew. Admiral Rourke finished up. We are going to do the obvious. I want those capital ships dead. Punch through and use the new missiles. We are sending the Marines on a long path to land while we engage. They will be screened, but we need to wipe this fleet if they are to be safe. You all know your jobs. No quarter. We are not taking surrenders until we recover our people. I want the Sijec gone. Minehead, Day 88, 18.00. Hinckley stood on level 5, the smell nearly unbearable. She had 60 men in full stealth gear. Look, either they made it or it was some else's problem. She was just a corporal, at best a fresh sergeant. Definitely not responsible for all these lives. Shit, she couldn't even make herself believe it, let alone anyone else. Captain of Minehead it was. Maybe she'd get the pension. She turned to the men, her men. We need to hold the surface, or everyone dies. On the other hand, none of us will ever need to eat dwarf bread again because, quite frankly, I'm quite prepared to eat the enemy at this stage. So keep it slow and steady. If you drop, I'm sorry, better hope they catch you because we only move up. Clear? The dark suits didn't exactly scream approval. In fact, without the HUD, she could barely see them. Perfect. Go! They swarmed up the broken rock, AI and old instincts powering them up the broken walls. Occasionally, one of them would punch in a secure point and move on. On her HUD, Hinckley could see the health of her people. This was nearly a kilometer climb after weeks of inactivity and a shit diet. She was worried more about the ones who knew what they were doing than the rank amateurs like her. Smug bastards. At least she had the benefit of sheer terror to keep her awake. And now she needed a piss. Fuck. Then, back through that glen I rode again, and my heart with grief was sore, for I parted then with valiant men, whom I never shall see more, and back to and fro in dreams, I'll go and I'll kneel and pray for you, O slavery fled, O glorious dead, when you fell in the foggy dew.